What if I told you that the woman my parents called a burden and a mistake just inherited $95 million? And what if I told you that the same parents who disowned me for marrying her are now camping outside our gate, begging for forgiveness? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Connor Mitchell, and this is the story of how love, loyalty, and karma came together in the most unexpected way possible. 3 years ago, I was just another corporate drone working at Henderson & Associates, a mid-sized accounting firm in Portland, Oregon. My life was predictable, comfortable, and honestly, pretty boring. I had a decent apartment, a reliable car, parents who had very specific expectations about my future. Richard and Patricia Mitchell weren't bad people, but they were ... particular. My father owned 3 hardware stores across the city, and my mother was a real estate agent who specialized in luxury properties. They'd built their middle-class empire through hard work and strategic marriages within their social circle. From the day I graduated college, they had my life mapped out. Marry someone from a good family, take over the hardware business, and produce grandchildren who would continue the Mitchell legacy. They even had candidates picked out daughters of their friends. It's all perfectly polished and socially acceptable. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. It was a rainy Tuesday in October when I first saw Maya Rodriguez. I was grabbing coffee at this little place called Brewer's Corner, running late for a client meeting, when I heard the most beautiful laugh I'd ever encountered. She was sitting by the window, auburn hair catching the gray light, completely absorbed. In a book, what struck me wasn't just her beauty, it was the way she seemed to radiate warmth and intelligence. She had this magnetic presence that made everyone around her seem a little brighter. I'm not usually the type to approach strangers, but something about Maya made me forget my usual awkwardness. I walked over and made some terrible joke about the weather. Instead of politely dismissing me, she laughed that same musical laugh that had caught my attention and invited me to sit down. We talked for 2 hours. She was a freelance graphic designer who specialized in accessibility consulting, helping companies make their websites and materials more inclusive for people with disabilities. She was passionate, brilliant, and had this way of seeing the world that challenged everything I thought I knew. It wasn't until she got up to leave that I realized Maya was in a wheelchair. And you know what? It didn't matter. It's not even a little bit. Maya and I started seeing each other regularly. She'd had spina bifida since birth, which affected her mobility, but she was more independent and capable than most people I knew. She had her own apartment, ran a successful business, and lived life on her own terms. Our first real date was at the Portland Art Museum. I was nervous about accessibility, but Maya had already researched the building and knew exactly where to go. She gave me a tour that was better than any official guide could have provided, explaining the history behind each piece with the kind of passion that made art come alive. Afterwards, we went to dinner at a small Italian place downtown. I watched Maya navigate the restaurant with confidence, never once acting like her wheelchair was an inconvenience. When the hostess tried to seat us at a table that wasn't accessible, Maya politely but firmly requested a different spot. She handled the situation with such grace that I realized she'd probably had to advocate for herself her entire life. She was also incredibly patient with my ignorance. I'd never been close to anyone with a disability, and I made mistakes. Using the wrong terminology, offering help when it wasn't needed, worrying about things that weren't actually problems. Maya educated me with grace and humor, helping me understand that disability was just one aspect of who she was, not something that defined her entire existence. "Connor," she said one evening, as we walked through Pioneer Courthouse Square, "I need you to understand something. I'm not an inspiration porn. I'm not brave enough to live my life. I'm just a regular person who happens to use wheels instead of legs to get around." She was right, of course. The more time I spent with Maya, the more I realized that her disability was probably the least interesting thing about her. She was building a business that was changing how companies thought about accessibility. She volunteered at a local adaptive sports program, teaching kids with disabilities that their limitations didn't have to limit their dreams. She had a wicked sense of humor, could beat me at chess every single time, and made the most incredible homemade pasta I'd ever tasted. Within 6 months, I was completely in love. Maya was everything I'd never known I wanted in a partner: intelligent, funny, compassionate, and strong in ways that had nothing to do with physical ability. She pushed me to be better, to think differently, to care about things beyond my own comfortable bubble. The first time I brought her home to meet my parents was a disaster. I should have prepared them better. I was hoping they'd see what I saw in Maya: her intelligence, her warmth, her incredible spirit. Instead, they saw the wheelchair first and struggled to see anything else. My mother took one look at Maya's wheelchair and immediately got that pinched expression she reserved for things that didn't fit her vision of perfection. She spent the entire evening asking questions that were clearly designed to highlight what she saw as Maya's limitations. How do you manage grocery shopping? Do you need help with housework? What about driving? Maya answered each question with patience and humor, explaining her adaptive equipment and independent living strategies. But I could see the frustration building behind her eyes. My father was polite but distant, asking surface-level questions while clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation. He kept glancing at Maya's wheelchair like it was a foreign object. He couldn't quite comprehend. The worst moment came when Maya needed to use the bathroom. My mother immediately jumped up and offered to help, treating Maya like a child who couldn't manage basic tasks independently. "I'm fine, Mrs. Mitchell," Maya said firmly. "I've been managing this particular task for 26 years. After Maya left, the real conversation began. "She seems nice, honey," my mother said in that tone she used when she was about to say something. "Terrible, but don't you think you're taking on more than you can handle?" My father was more direct. "Son, marriage is hard enough without adding ... complications. There are plenty of nice girls out there who would be easier to build a life with." I tried to explain that Maya wasn't a complication or a burden. She was an incredible woman who happened to use a wheelchair. But they couldn't see past their own prejudices and fears. "What about your career?" my mother pressed. "You'll need to be her caregiver. When will you have time to build the business with your father?" "Maya doesn't need a caregiver," I said, my voice rising. "She needs a partner, just like any other relationship." But they weren't listening. They'd already decided that Maya was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. Despite my parents' disapproval, Maya and I grew closer. She introduced me to her world: adaptive sports events, accessibility advocacy groups, and a community of people who'd taught her that limitations were often just opportunities to get creative. One of my first eye-opening experiences was attending a wheelchair basketball game where Maya played in a recreational league. I'd never seen anything like it. The speed, the skill, the sheer athleticism of these players. Maya was incredible, weaving through defenders and sinking three-pointers with the same confidence she brought to everything else in her life. After the game, I met some of her teammates. There was Marcus, a veteran who'd lost his legs in Afghanistan and was now training for the Paralympics. Sarah, who'd been born with cerebral palsy and was finishing her PhD in biomedical engineering. David, who'd had a spinal cord injury in a diving accident and was now a successful architect specializing in accessible design. These weren't people defined by their disabilities. They were accomplished individuals who happened to have different physical capabilities. It was a revelation that forced me to examine my own unconscious biases and assumptions. Maya's own family situation was complicated. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 16. She'd been raised by her grandmother, Elena Rodriguez, who had passed away 2 years before I met Maya. Elena had been a seamstress who'd immigrated from Mexico in the 1960s. Multiple jobs to support her family, while teaching Maya the importance of independence and self-reliance. Abuela Elena used to say that strength isn't about what you can do with your body, Maya told me one evening as we cooked dinner together. It's about what you can do with your mind and your heart. Maya showed me the letters her grandmother had left her, dozens of them, to be opened on birthdays, holidays, and major life events. Elena had written them during her final illness. Wanting to make sure Maya would always have her guidance and love, she had one living relative that she knew of, her grandfather's brother. Eduardo Rodriguez, who lived in Argentina and sent birthday cards but had never visited. Cards always included a brief note asking about her life and achievements, but Maya had never met him in person. Family isn't always about blood, Maya told me one evening as we watched the sunset from her apartment balcony. Sometimes it's about the people who choose to love you exactly as you are. She was talking about her chosen family, friends who'd become siblings, mentors who'd become parental figures, and now, hopefully, me. But her words also stung because they highlighted how my own blood family was failing both of us. I started attending therapy to work through my feelings about my parents' rejection. Dr. Jennifer Walsh helped me understand that their reaction wasn't really about Maya. It was about their own fears, prejudices, and need for control. They'd built their identity around being the kind of people who made smart choices, and they couldn't accept that love might be the smartest choice of all. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Maya was incredibly supportive during this process. She never pressured me to choose between her and my family, but she also didn't pretend that their behavior was acceptable. "I won't be the reason you lose your parents," she said one night, after a particularly difficult therapy session. "But I also won't be with someone who's ashamed of me or sees me as a compromise." She was right. I had to decide what kind of person I wanted to be and what kind of life I wanted to build. After 18 months of dating, I knew I wanted to marry Maya. She was my best friend, my partner, and the person who made me want to be the best version of myself. The fact that she used a wheelchair was about as relevant to our relationship as the fact that I wore glasses. It was just part of who we were. I spent weeks planning the proposal, wanting it to be perfect. Worked with a local jeweler too. Design a ring that reflected Maya's personality, elegant but not flashy, with a vintage-inspired setting that matched her style. I arranged for her favorite flowers to be delivered to Brewer's Corner, the coffee shop where we'd met. On the anniversary of our first meeting, I brought Maya back to that same table by the window. She suspected something was up. I'd been nervous and fidgety all day, but she played along when I started reminiscing about our first conversation. "Maya," I said, getting down on one knee beside her chair, "you've taught me that love isn't about finding someone who fits into your life perfectly. It's about finding someone who makes you want to build a better life together." I pulled out the ring box, my hand shaking slightly. "You've made me braver, kinder, and more aware of the world around me. You've shown me that strength comes in many forms, and that the most important accessibility feature of any relationship is mutual respect." Maya was crying now, her hand covering her mouth. "Will you marry me and keep teaching me how to be the man you deserve?" Maya said yes before I even finished asking the question, laughing through her tears as she pulled me close for a kiss that tastes like coffee and forever. When I told my parents about the engagement, the mask of polite tolerance finally slipped. Completely, I'd invited them to lunch at their favorite restaurant, hoping that a public setting might keep the conversation civil. I was wrong. "Absolutely not," my mother said, her voice shaking with emotion. "Connor, you're throwing your life away? What about children? What about your career? You want to be a caregiver for the rest of your life?" Other diners were starting to stare, but my mother was beyond caring about appearances. "Mom, Maya doesn't need a caregiver," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "She needs a husband. There's a difference." My father tried a different approach. "We're not saying Maya isn't a wonderful person, but marriage is about more than love. It's about partnership, building a future together. You need someone who can stand beside you as an equal." The implication was clear. They didn't see Maya as my equal. "She is my equal," I said, my patience finally wearing thin. "She's probably more successful than I am. She runs her own business, owns her own home, and has achieved more in her career than most people dream of." "But what about children?" my mother pressed. "Have you thought about the genetic risks? The challenges of raising a family when one parent has special needs?" Special needs? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, Maya has spina bifida, not a cognitive disability. She's one of the smartest people I know." I tried to educate them, to explain that people with disabilities get married, have careers, raise families, and live full lives every day. I shared statistics about employment rates, talked about adaptive technologies, and tried to help them understand that their fears were based on outdated stereotypes. But they weren't interested in facts. They were interested in their vision of my future, and Maya didn't fit that picture. "Connor," my father said, his voice taking on the tone he used when closing a business deal, "we've been patient with this ... phase you're going through. But enough is enough. We've already spoken to the Hendersons about their daughter Sarah. She's a lovely girl. She's finished her master's degree in marketing. She'd be perfect for you." I stared at him in disbelief. "You want me to break up with the woman I love so I can date someone you've pre-selected? I want you to make a smart choice," my mother said. "Sarah comes from a good family. She's accomplished, attractive, and she can give you the life you deserve." "The life I deserve?" I stood up, no longer caring about the scene we were making. "I deserve to be with someone who makes me happy, who challenges me to be better, who loves me for who I am. That's Maya." My parents exchanged a look that I'd seen 1,000 times growing up, the look that said they knew better than everyone else. "If you marry her," my father said finally, "you're on your own. No help with the business, no family support, no inheritance. You'll be making this choice with full knowledge of the consequences." My mother was crying now, but her tears felt manipulative rather than genuine. "We raised you better than this, Connor. We gave you every opportunity, every advantage. How can you repay us by making such a selfish decision?" Selfish. That's what they call choosing love over their approval. "You know what's selfish?" I said, my voice rising. "Trying to control your adult son's life because you're embarrassed by his choices? Maya is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And if you can't see that, then you don't really know me at all." I threw my napkin on the table and walked out of the restaurant, leaving them sitting there with their shocked expressions and their narrow worldview. That night, I called Maya and told her everything. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. "Sorry," she said finally. "I'm sorry that loving me is costing you your family." "Maya, you're not costing me anything," I said. "They're choosing to miss out on knowing an incredible woman and having a relationship with their son. That's their loss, not mine." But privately, I was devastated. These were the people who'd raised me, who'd taught me my values, who'd been present for every major milestone in my life. The idea of getting married without them there felt like losing a part of myself. I left their house that night knowing I might never be welcome there again, planning a wedding without family support. It was harder than I'd expected. Maya and I had to navigate everything ourselves, choosing venues, coordinating vendors, making decisions that traditionally involved parents and extended family. Maya's chosen family stepped up in ways that brought tears to my eyes. Her former boss, Catherine Walsh, who'd become a mentor and friend, helped with the planning. Her college roommate, Lisa Chen, flew in from Seattle to be her maid of honor. The adaptive sports team threw her a bachelorette party that was more fun than any traditional celebration I'd ever attended. On my side, things were more complicated. My cousin Jake, who'd always been more like a brother to me, defied his own parents' wishes to serve as my best man. A few friends from work and college attended, but the groomsmen section looked sparse. Compared to Maya's vibrant group of supporters, the most painful part was the silence from my parents. No phone calls, no attempts to reconcile, no acknowledgement that their son was getting married. They sent a single card 2 weeks before the wedding. Not congratulations, but a final ultimatum to come to our senses before it was too late. Maya found me reading the card in our kitchen. With anger and grief, "They still think this is a phase," I said, crumpling the card. "They think I'm going to wake up one day and realize I've made a mistake." Maya wheeled over and took my hands in hers. "Connor, look at me. Are you having second thoughts?" "Yes." "If you are, if any part of you thinks they might be right, we need to talk about it now." I looked into her eyes, those beautiful brown eyes that had captured my heart in a coffee shop 2 years earlier, and felt my resolve strengthen. "Never," I said. "The only mistake I ever made was waiting so long to propose to you." We had our wedding in the Portland Japanese Garden on a perfect spring day in May. The venue was naturally accessible, and the setting was breathtaking. Maya looked stunning in a vintage-inspired dress that she'd found at a local boutique, and had tailored to be both elegant and practical. Her chosen family filled the bride's side: friends from college, clients who'd become close friends, teammates from her basketball league, and volunteers from the adaptive sports program, where she coached. My side was smaller, but filled with people who genuinely cared about both of us. The ceremony was beautiful and deeply personal. We'd written our own vows, and Maya's words made everyone cry. "Connor," she said, looking directly into my eyes, "before I met you, I thought I had to be perfect to be worthy of love. I thought I had to prove that my disability doesn't define me by never needing help, never showing vulnerability, never admitting that sometimes things are harder for me." Her voice was strong and clear, carrying across the garden. "But you've shown me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being perfectly honest with each other. You've never once made me feel like I'm not enough. You've never treated me like I'm fragile or incapable. You've shown me that true love isn't about what we can do for each other. It's about who we choose to be when we're together." When it was my turn, I spoke from the heart about how Maya had changed my life. "Maya, you've taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward despite fear. You've shown me that strength comes in many forms, and that the strongest people are often those who've had to fight for their place in the world. You've made me want to be a better man, not because you demanded it, but because your example inspired it." I paused, looking out at the faces of the people who'd chosen to celebrate with us. "I promise to love you not in spite of who you are, but because of who you are. I promise to stand with you, advocate with you, and build a life that honors both our dreams and our differences." The reception was held at a local restaurant that Maya had worked with to ensure full accessibility. The food was incredible, the music was perfect, and for a few hours, we were surrounded by nothing but love and support. My cousin Jake gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying. Connor and Maya proved that the best relationships aren't about finding someone who completes you. They're about finding someone who inspires you to complete yourself. As the evening wound down and we were saying goodbye to our guests, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Consider yourself no longer part of this family. Don't contact us again." Maya saw my face change as I read the message. She took my phone, read it herself, and then looked up at me with a mixture of sadness and determination. "Their loss," she said simply. And she was right that night as we sat in our hotel room still wearing our wedding clothes. Maya pulled out a letter that had been delivered to the venue during the reception. "This came for you," she said, handing me an envelope addressed in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a note from Eduardo Rodriguez, Maya's great uncle in Argentina. He'd somehow learned about our wedding and wanted to send his congratulations. The letter was in Spanish, but Maya translated it for me. "Dear Maya and Connor, I wish I could be there to celebrate with you, but please know that my thoughts and prayers are with you both. Maya, your grandmother Alina would be so proud of the woman you've become and the love you've found. Connor, welcome to the Rodriguez family. You may be small, but we love fiercely and forever." It was the first time anyone had officially welcomed me into their family, and it meant more than I could express. Maya folded the letter carefully and placed it in her purse. "See?" she said, kissing my cheek. "We do have family. We just had to build it ourselves." The first year of marriage was challenging, but not for the reasons my parents had predicted. Maya's disability had never been an issue in our relationship. It was just part of our normal. The real challenge was building a life together while dealing with the grief of losing my family and the financial pressure of starting over without any safety net. Maya's business was thriving. She'd landed several major contracts with tech companies who were finally taking accessibility seriously, and she was making more money than I was. Her client list included 2 Fortune 500 companies, a major university, several startups that were building accessibility into their products from the ground up. Watched her work with these clients and was amazed by her expertise and professionalism. She could spot accessibility issues that others missed, suggest solutions that were both practical and cost-effective, and educate teams about inclusive design in ways that made them excited rather than overwhelmed. One particular project stood out a social media platform that was struggling with accessibility compliance. Maya spent 3 months working with their development team, not just fixing problems, but teaching them how to think differently about user experience. The final product was so much better than what they'd originally envisioned that they ended up using Maya's improvements as a selling point in their marketing. I left Henderson and Associates to start my own accounting practice, specializing in small businesses and nonprofits. Without my parents' financial safety net, I had to be more strategic and work harder than ever before. But I was happier than I'd ever been. My first major client was actually a referral from Maya, a nonprofit that provided adaptive equipment to people with disabilities. Working with them opened my eyes to the unique financial challenges faced by disability-focused organizations and the individuals they served. I started developing specialized services for this community, helping people navigate the complex world of disability benefits, medical expenses, and adaptive technology costs. Maya and I bought a house together, a beautiful ranch-style home in Southeast Portland that Maya had helped design to be both stylish and functional. She worked with the builder to include features that weren't just accessible, but actually made the house better for everyone. Wider doorways that made moving furniture easier, a roll-in shower that was luxurious and spa-like, and an open floor plan that was perfect for entertaining. Our first housewarming party was a revelation. Maya's friends from the Adaptive Sports League came, along with my new clients and colleagues. Watching everyone interact naturally, seeing kids play with Maya's racing wheelchair, and listening to conversations about everything from basketball strategy to business innovation, I realized that we'd created something special, a community. Built on acceptance and authentic connection, we also started talking seriously about having children. Maya and I did our research, consulted with genetic counselors and maternal fetal medicine specialists, and learned that while spina bifida has a genetic component, it's not necessarily hereditary. We were prepared for any outcome and excited about the possibility of becoming parents. I want our kids to grow up understanding that difference isn't wrong, Maya said one evening as we sat on our back patio watching the sunset. I want them to see wheelchairs and hearing aids and service dogs as just different tools that help people live their lives. I loved watching Maya with children. She volunteered at the Adaptive Sports program, coaching kids with various disabilities in wheelchair basketball and tennis. She had this incredible ability to see each child's potential and help them recognize their own strengths. One of her favorite students was a 7-year-old named Aiden, who'd been born with spina bifida. Damn. His parents were struggling with their own fears and limitations. Much like my parents had struggled with Maya's disability, Maya worked with the whole family, helping them understand that Aiden's future was limited only by their expectations and his own determination. "Look at me," Maya told Aiden's mother during one particularly emotional conversation. "I have a successful business, a beautiful home, and a husband who loves me. I play sports, I travel, and I'm planning to have children. Spina bifida is just one part of who I am. It doesn't define what I can achieve." Watching Maya mentor these families and advocate for these children made me fall in love with her all over again. She was using her own experiences to create opportunities for others, turning her challenges into a source of strength and wisdom. Our second year of marriage has brought new challenges and opportunities. Maya's business had grown to the point where she needed to hire employees. She brought on 2 junior consultants, one who specialized in web accessibility and another who focused on physical space design. Both happened to have disabilities themselves, which gave Maya's company a unique perspective that clients valued. I was also expanding my practice, developing workshops and resources specifically for families affected by disability. I'd learned so much from Maya and her community about the financial aspects of disability that I wanted to share that knowledge with others. We started getting invited to speak at conferences and workshops. Together, Maya talking about accessibility, and inclusion, me discussing the financial planning aspects of disability. It was incredibly rewarding to see how our different expertise areas complemented each other. But the most significant change came when Maya started experiencing some health issues that required surgery. It was a routine procedure related to her spina bifida. but it meant several weeks of recovery and temporary limitations. I took time off work to help with her care. And for the first time in our relationship, Maya needed significant assistance with daily activities. It was a test of our partnership in ways we hadn't expected. "I hate this," Maya said one evening as I helped her transfer from her wheelchair to the bed. "I've been independent my whole life, and now I feel like I'm exactly what your parents said I was a burden." "Maya, look at me," I said, sitting beside her. "You're not a burden. You're my wife. This is what in sickness and in health means. Just like you'd take care of me if I needed it." She was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "You know what? You're right. And honestly, you're a pretty good caregiver. Maybe I should keep you around." That experience taught us both that marriage isn't just about the good times. It's about being there for each other when things get difficult. It also showed us that our relationship was strong enough to handle whatever challenges came our way. By the end of our second year, we felt ready to start trying for a baby. Maya's health had returned to normal, our businesses were stable, and we'd built a support network of friends and chosen family who would help us navigate parenthood. Then, completely out of nowhere, everything changed in a way we never could have imagined. It was a Thursday morning in March when the lawyers called. Eduardo Rodriguez, Maya's great-uncle in Argentina, had passed away at 93. Maya hadn't seen him since she was a child, but apparently he'd been following her life from afar. Eduardo had never married or had children. He'd built a successful import-export business that had grown into a multinational corporation. His will was very specific. His entire estate, worth $95 million, was to go to Maya Rodriguez Mitchell. The lawyers explained that Eduardo had been impressed by Maya's resilience, her business success, and her commitment to helping others. He'd left detailed notes about why he'd chosen her as his heir, describing her as the true spirit of the Rodriguez family. Maya was in shock. We both were. One phone call had changed everything. The money came with no strings attached. Eduardo's lawyers had already handled the taxes and international transfer issues. Maya was now worth more than most people see in several lifetimes. Word travels fast in a city like Portland, especially when it involves this kind of money. Within a week, everyone knew about Maya's inheritance. Local news picked up the story, focusing on the heartwarming tale of a successful disabled entrepreneur who inherited millions. My parents heard about it, of course. They called that same day. "Connor," my mother's voice was syrupy sweet. "We've been thinking about you and Maya so much lately. We realize we may have been ... hasty ... in our reaction to your marriage. We'd love to have you both over for dinner to make amends." My father was even more transparent. "Son, family is family. Whatever differences we've had, we should put them behind us. Maya seems like a wonderful girl, and we were wrong to judge her so harshly." It was almost laughable. The woman they'd called a burden and a mistake was suddenly a wonderful girl who deserved their respect and acceptance. Maya listened to me recount the counted conversations with a mixture of amusement and sadness. "It's funny," she said, "how money can suddenly make someone more acceptable to people who claim to love you unconditionally." My parents began showing up at our house unannounced. They brought gifts, flowers, and apologies that felt hollow and calculated. They gushed over Maya's success, praised her business acumen, and talked about how proud they were to have such an accomplished daughter-in-law. Maya handled it with more grace than they deserved, but I could see the toll it was taking on her. These were the same people who'd implied she wasn't good enough for their son, who'd refused to attend our wedding, who'd disowned me for choosing love over their approval. The final confrontation came when my father arrived with paperwork to help us manage Maya's inheritance. He'd brought investment strategies, trust documents, and a proposal to have his financial advisor handle our portfolio. "Maya," he said, using the patronizing tone he reserved for people he thought were beneath him, "this kind of money requires careful management. You'll want experienced professionals to make sure you don't make any costly mistakes." That's when Maya's patience finally ran out. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I've been managing my own finances and building my own business since I was 18. I think I can handle this without your help." She paused, then continued, but more importantly, I want you to understand something. Your son didn't marry me for money. He married me when I had nothing but student loans and a dream. He chose me when you told him I was a burden. Loved me when you said I wasn't worthy of your family. She looked directly at my father.
Oh.
You want to be part of our lives because I have money? That tells me everything I need to know about your character. My parents left that day and haven't been back since. They still send occasional texts and emails, but Maya and I have built a life that doesn't need their approval or their presence. 3 months later, Maya and I established the Rodriguez Foundation, focused on improving accessibility and supporting young entrepreneurs with disabilities. We're using Eduardo's gift to make the world a little more inclusive. One grant at a time, Maya's business continues to grow, and she's become a sought-after speaker on accessibility and inclusive design. I've expanded my practice to include financial planning for people with disabilities, helping them navigate the unique challenges they face. We're expecting our first child in the fall, a perfectly healthy baby girl who's already teaching us new things about love and resilience. Sometimes people ask me if I regret the choice I made, if I miss having my parents in my life. The truth is, I found something better than the family I was born into. I found the family I chose. Maya, she's still the best decision I've ever made. Money didn't change who she was. It just proved what I'd known all along, that love, loyalty, and character are worth more than any inheritance. And that's a lesson my parents will never understand. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.